You know, Christmas is gift giving time and gift receiving time, and we get boxes in the mail. And Buster likes it because Buster likes boxes. I don't understand what it is about cats, but Buster likes boxes. And of course, whatever Buster does, Fred has to get involved in. Because Fred kind of runs the show. But that'll be their toy for the next couple days, and they'll get tired of it, and then we'll have to get rid of it, and the next box that comes along, they'll want it.
People did a really nice job on that teddy bear.
They did, huh? Mm-hmm. What are you doing, Freddie? Get out of that box.
Oh, let him play in.
You get out of that box, you little monster. You guys can fight over it, okay? Go ahead, Buster. Take it over.
I've got to keep in mind how much a box to Laura is going to cost.
You know, I've been messing with radios for a while now, and I've seen a lot of things. But I've never seen this before, and I hope not to see it again. What you're looking at is a Westinghouse radio I'm working on. And I told you I've got to clean up the cabinet. And I may have mentioned to you about this before, but I'm not sure if I knew at the time or not. But somebody in the past, in their wisdom, refinished this cabinet by applying vinyl contact paper. I know vinyl contact paper, but you get the idea. I mean, they stuck this vinyl crap all over this beautiful mahogany finished cabinet. So I discovered it by taking it down to my buddy who owns the furniture restoration shop, and I'm like, I don't know what they did to this, but can you strip it? And he started laughing, and he looks at it, and he knew right away what it was, and he told me, man, that's contact paper, and that's been on there for a long time. And I said, how long? He said, well, that was popular to do back in the 70s and 80s. He said, so that's probably been there for at least 30 years. And I tried, he said I could put this in my dip tank and it might dissolve it, but then it'll mess up my dip solution. I can't do that. So, you know, you're going to kind of have to, the only way you're going to get that off of there is to scrape it. And I'm like, oh crap, you know, he showed me how to do it. You know, you kind of do this scraping thing. The trouble is, you know, the stuff goes flying everywhere and I risk gouging this wood. So I was talking to Wifey about it, and Wifey made a great suggestion. She said, why not put some heat to it? When you're trying to get rid of contact paper, that's the way to get rid of it. So, sure enough, that's what I'm going to try, guys. So I'm going to turn on the heat gun, just put it on the lowest setting. And she said, get it to where it's just starting to bubble. That's when you want to peel it off. Hey, check this out. You wait till this vinyl material bubbles pretty well. When it's bubbling nice and strong, then it scrapes off really easily. And so you have to move kind of slow, but you only have to make one, maybe a real light second pass, but basically one pass. And that just peels off like frosting off a cake, man. Hey, frosting cake. That sounds good. Hey, if I went and got my favorite cake is white cake with buttercream frosting. If I went and picked one of those up and nibbled on it while I'm making a video, would you guys tell Wifey? Because she doesn't think I ought to be eating that stuff. Yeah. All right. If you can keep a secret, I might just have to do that a little later today. Look at that. It's coming off nice and easy. It leaves a little bit of remnants on there that I'm sure I'll have to warm up and go scrape off, but this is working pretty well. And I noticed if I point this directly at it, it gets hot a lot faster. Of course, that makes sense. Boy, that's hot on my fingers, though, I'll tell you. Okay. Take this residue off. Look at that, comes right off of there. Doesn't leave any marks in the wood. That's nice. Wifey's pretty smart, man, except when it comes to cake. She doesn't understand about cake. Why on earth someone would ruin a beautiful finish like this with this crappy vinyl contact covering is just beyond my comprehension. Some wood filler here. Ooh, yikes. Guess I should have, that's my, that's just stupidity, right? I got it coming when I do something dumb like that. Doing it this way gets the blade hot too, and so it makes it easier to get under this stuff. I hope I don't find something nasty underneath it somewhere that tells me the reason they did it. I hope they just did it because they were lazy and didn't want to refinish the cabinet the right way. I have to remember this is a tabletop AM radio. I think it's AM FM. I've forgotten now. But, so it was an inexpensive radio of the mid-50s. So, they were not throwaway yet, but they were getting a lot closer. And so maybe someone just didn't think it was worth the effort. It wasn't like it was in the early 30s when a household maybe had one radio and it was precious to them. That was their pipeline to the outside world. I'm kind of working ahead on this radio. That's why I don't know much about the chassis. I've forgotten because while I'm waiting for lacquer to dry on another project I'm working, I thought I'd start scraping this. I might as well. No point in wasting time standing around watching paint dry. That's a beautiful thing. Ouch. Oh, by the way, guys, the metal barrel on a heat gun gets hot. Just saying. It takes some practice on this lighter wood. I'm not sure why, but it does. The adhesive wants to stay behind more on this, so I might have to do some extra cleanup on it, but it's just the sides. It's very stubborn on this part. It must be the wood is more porous. It's a matter of figuring out just how much heat to give it and how much scraping to do. So the scraper has a bevel to it. You want to keep it so that the flat side is down, so the bevel is on the top side. I know it sounds fundamental to you guys that do a lot of woodworking, but I don't, so I'm having to learn this stuff. So I'll probably have to put a little bit of stain on this side, on the sides. I just tend to like darker colors. I like the mahoganies and the cherries and stuff. But I want it to be like it was when it was made. It's not that important to me that the chassis underneath where the capacitors live looks so original, because that's a performance thing. I mean, just like when I put tires on my car, it's not important to me that the tires look exactly like the ones that were coming from the factory. But I sure don't like to change the, other things about the car that make it non-original. Well, it's the same with capacitors, right? They're like tires. John from Arkansas taught me that. Capacitors are like tires. You wouldn't go put old tires on a car that you're going to drive. Well, you don't need old capacitors inside of a radio. You don't need the originals. And to me, restuffing is a lot of work to make it look like old capacitors. And the only people who are going to look at it are people like you and me. Believe me, the owners don't spend any time under the chassis. I know, I've checked. I've asked them. And sometimes they look at me cross-eyed when I ask them, do you need me to restuff? When I explain what it is, they're like, why in the heck would I need to do that? So there are some radios that are special that you restuff, I'm getting ready to start a Brunswick 5KR. I'll probably restuff all that stuff. Because, they're just a little different. And besides, the people that mess with those radios are more likely to get underneath. But something like this, the owner wants to use it every day. They're not terribly concerned that the caps look the same. And in fact, on that 5KR, when I talked to the owner about that radio, she just wants to use it too. She just thinks that the coffin style radio is cool. So I probably won't even really worry about the restuffing there either. The reason is it takes a lot more time, and when I'm doing it for somebody else, I got to charge for that time. Otherwise, I might as well do my own radios. And they don't want to pay for that much time. So I offer it to folks. I know how to do it, and I consider it a pain in the butt, and I don't even do it for my own stuff. Now, I'm sure in will come all the comments about how I'm wrong and how it's not really a restore and all that. I've heard them all. Believe me, guys, I've heard them all. Most of the people that I do work for, this is just my experience, most of the people that I do work for, what they want is an old radio that works, but they want it to sound, look, and feel like an old radio. That's important to them. They want an old radio that they can display. And when somebody says, well, does it work? They can say, you bet it does. And sometimes they'll tell their visitors they had it restored, you know, sometimes they won't. But they're always excited to be able to demonstrate that, wow, this 80-year-old, 90-year-old radio actually still works. And I had one guy tell me he's had me do several of his radios. He never tells anybody he's getting them restored. He just thinks it's really cool that they're fascinated that the radio, as old as it is, still works. I did a General Electric H-161 for this guy, which is basically a clone of a radiola. I think it's a radiola, is it 80? Anyway, the H-31 is a really nice radio. I have one myself. And I did this radio for him, and he set it up in his like his study, you know, and he had a friend over. He was telling me about this, and his friend was looking at it, and while it was playing, and his friend was absolutely awestruck that this old radio, this H-31, still played and sounded as well as it did. And my friend, the owner I did the work for, never told the guy looking at the radio that he had it worked on. If you don't have a gentle touch and you start going at wood with a scraper like I'm doing, you're going to mess up your radio. You gotta use some finesse when you do this, because you will put gouges in that wood if you're not careful. I have years of working on cars, you know, doing Bondo work, but also, you know, like stripping cars and painting them myself and stuff like that. And so I've learned to get a feel very early on for what the material that you're working with can handle. And then you stay within those bounds. So this will come out actually pretty well. I think it's leaving some adhesive behind, but this adhesive is probably solvent. You know, it's probably will wipe away with solvent. And then I'm going to seal it with shellac. And so shellac is like everybody's best friend. Shellac gets along with everybody. And so when I spray it with shellac, it won't matter if there's a little bit of residue on there. It won't interfere with the lacquer. Shellac and lacquer are like good buddies. Wow, it does not like to come off of these sides. I got another side to do too. Can't tell you how many times I've been grateful that radios most of them do not have wooden backs, so that reduces the amount you have to refinish. So if you get it too hot, that adhesive melts down into the wood, and then you can't get it off at all. It's kind of a dance, man. You got to know just when to do the change-ups. Otherwise you look silly. On the corners you have to be careful because they seem to feel the heat more. Wifey and I are watching a really good mini-series now if you like British sort of costume dramas. As always, I'm watching British costume dramas, you know me. And I might have mentioned it in an earlier vid, but just in case, this one called Poldark. Right now on Amazon they have the first 3 series as part of having Amazon Prime. So Poldark is an awesome series. It's well acted. It is a little soap opera-ish, you know, but that's kind of what I like. Torment for me is to watch a movie like Die Hard, man. I love like Bruce Willis. He's funny, and he was funny in that movie. But movies in that genre are torment for me. Nothing is more boring to me than a shoot 'em up, you know, chase around, car chase, stupid American movie. Just don't get into them. But movies like Poldark, which are historically based and give you a flavor for the history of the time, what it was like to live in the time, and yet have a good drama story to go with it, are really worth watching to me. And so, as much as I don't like the politics of it, I love the entertainment value of the BBC. I sure wish that BBC World Service, or whatever it was called, the shortwave service that the BBC used to run, I wish they still did that. I was born about 70 years too late, man. But then again, if I wasn't in the generation I'm in as it is, I wouldn't get to do YouTube videos. And if it weren't for YouTube videos, I wouldn't have even realized that this hobby of radio restoration was possible and affordable. One of the reasons I got out of car restoration was every single car cost an awful lot of money. So although I could kind of afford it, it wasn't as rewarding because, you know, you put a whole bunch of money into one object, the car, you know. When I would do it, my favorite, of all the cars I restored, my favorites were the VW Porsche 914s. I love those cars. They're fun to drive. They're quirky looking, and they're a good kind of quirky in the way they behave. They're just fun. And they're a sports car that you can drive every single day. They're reliable, and they handle better than any other car I ever owned, including the 911. I would, you know, the last 914 I did, I put about, and I just did a basic on it too. I mean, basic painting, you know, fixed up the suspension, made a few upgrades, but not many. I'm an originality person. But mostly I made the engine more powerful so it could have some speed to go with the handling. And I got about 12 grand into just that on that car. Well, hell, I could restore just about every radio I have, or at least a good many of them for 12 grand. And I get just as much satisfaction out of restoring a radio as I do a car. So that's why I changed hobbies. Cars are cool. Cars are sort of manly, you know. I mean, men restore cars. But I'm not all that concerned about that anyway. I mean, otherwise, why would I be talking to you about Pole Dark and shows like Pride and Prejudice and Wives and Daughters and that kind of thing? I'm not terribly concerned about being manly. Those days are long past for me where I have to impress somebody in that way. I used to be embarrassed to tell people that I've never played football. In fact, not only have I not played, I've never actually watched an entire football game. I think I would rather watch 2 hours of the Weather Channel than I would watching a football game. I just don't know too many things that are more dull to me. Don't go getting mad and sending me all kinds of nasty comments. You know, everybody likes what they like and don't like what they don't like. If you like football, that's cool, I guess. I just finished the other night watching, I think it was made in 2011, maybe 2013, the remake of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. That was awesome, man. That's a good film. I actually had to watch it twice so that I could make sure I understood everything in it, because it's complicated and it moves quickly, and they don't give you a lot of opportunities to catch the details. They basically give them to you once, and then you're on your own. If you don't remember, it's your problem. You have to watch the movie again. But it's a good story. It's not a shoot 'em up, chase 'em around an Aston Martin type spy story. It's, I think, more like what it's like to be a real spy and what it's like to live in that world. It's a lot of, just like any other profession, man, it's mostly hard work and persistence. Wow, this stuff's a pain in the butt. It's actually kind of a pretty color, though. I don't know how well it's rendering in the video, but it looks good. It looks good up close and personal. Like I said, I think this adhesive is actually lending some nice grain definition to this wood. I'm not going to be terribly upset if I can't get it all out. All right, we are in the home stretch of stripping this baby. And I really didn't expect it to go this fast, so I'm really kind of relieved. I've been putting this off for a while. I mean, it didn't come up in the queue yet either, but I haven't wanted to do it either way. But it's not too bad. I think I can handle this. So I'm going to start with this bottom here to get a little practice, a little more practice. Ooh, that's just wide enough for the scraper to fit in there. That's good. I was worried about that. So this is round, and you got to go real light on this. You just kind of go around it as you go. And you're going to take some of the finish off on the corners. There's no way around it, because you get the contact paper off, the finish will come with it. So as you're going, sometimes if you go down a little bit as you're doing it too, it prevents you from gouging, and it cuts it better. That movement, that combination of movements helps cut it better. There we go. Light touch, guys, light touch. You gouge this, it's permanent. unless you know how to fix those things, and I'm not good at that yet. This table, this elevated table, is left over from my car days, and it was one of the best purchases I ever made. Holy Toledo, Batman. I just looked at my watch and realized how long I've been yammering on about this. So let's watch the boys do a little wrestling as we get ready to put the radio chassis on the bench. Here we go. Oh.
They like to bite each other. Ow!
Oh, that hurts.
Oh, he's going to get paid for that.
It's got a really smooth zoom on it.
Oh!
Whoa! Normally I like to start out by taking all the fragile stuff off the radio. So I'm going to go ahead and do that by I'm going to start doing that by pulling the tubes. Then I'll take the knobs off. And I'm probably going to clean up some of this chassis and get that out of the way. I like the way that Larry did what he did on the treasure chest. He cleaned the top of the chassis before he really got underway underneath. And I like that idea because he's right. I'm the same way. By the time I get to where I'm nearly done with the radio, I'm really not going to want to be patient enough to spend a lot of time on the chassis. I'm going to want to hear it play. So best to do it right now and get it over with. Let me show you something that I just discovered about this radio that's kind of cool and it's unique. Before I show you, let me number these little pieces right here, and I'll explain why in a second. Those of you that know these radios might understand. So I'm going to mark these. This is B number 2, and I'm going to mark this piece number 1. Okay, and I'll put the arrow going up when the needle is all the way to the right. Okay, that way I remain oriented. Okay, put a little X on the place where the arrows are pointing. Okay, let me show this to you guys. This is really cool. I never saw anything like this before. So the way this works is this little piece here comes out here like so. Bang. Now you can take the spring off of here or leave it on, whatever. It looks like it's on there pretty well. I might just leave it alone. Oh, okay, it does come off. All right, so there we go. Now we've got a spring. Okay, now check this out. The needle comes off like that. So now I can keep that safe. That is really slick. I've never seen a dial like that before. And so just to review in the close-up, okay, the needle goes on like so. Okay, goes on just like this. Sits right in here with this one little pointed section here, this little forked section going under the large diameter part of this little pulley. Okay, now this one here does the same thing under the little pulley on the needle. Okay, then you come over here and you lay this down and put the fork under the wheel on this one. Then you take the spring and you wrap the spring around and hook it up. That is really slick. I really dig that. Now that makes it nice because I'll clean this up and I'll also shoot some new paint on this right here because this is pretty beat up. That really frees me up to take this dial off of here. Now it looks discolored, and maybe it is, but it's actually kind of quaint, and I'm going to leave it be. So let me get this thing off of here because I do not want to damage this dial. I don't think I'd ever find another one. What I might do though is make a scan. Okay, a Xerox. I'll scan it on the Xerox machine. And then I'll print this thing on a transparency. I'm going to see if that'll work out. Because I might be able to make a duplicate of it just in case. Never know, guys. Just in case. Okay, there are 2 screws that hold this on. And of course there are 2 lamps on it. It would be really smart if I unplug this radio before I start horsing with that stuff, don't you think? Alright, so these remove a la Zenith. If you remember the late 30s Zeniths, these pop out just like those, okay? Just like the ones that come out of the black dial Zeniths. You just squeeze this part right here together, and it comes right out of the openings, okay? Take a look there. Boy, this radio was well thought out. I have always respected the Westinghouse company, and this radio is no exception. Okay, so you just squeeze those together, pops right out, and this guy here just slides off of the little bracket here. Okay, just slides off. Now, before I go too far, just in case I get confused, this is the top. I'm labeling them. Now, to me, right is right when you're looking at the radio. Okay, so this is the right side right here. And where'd that lamp go? This lamp here goes on the right side. Now, this may seem obvious to you, but later on, it might not seem so obvious. Where'd that left one go? Yikes. No, I had it wrong. This is the right one. This is the left one. See, this is why you label these things, and you do it soon, because you'll forget the next day. I've got to remove that right, so let me just scratch that out in case I forget to do that. We'll call this one the right one. Makes sense because it's coming out here over the right, the wire is. All right. Let me go ahead and get rid of this. If I don't do things like right now, I'll forget them. That's sort of my problem. And it's not old age, guys. It's been my problem all my life. So, okay, so that is off of there. That is really cool. Let's see. Do I want to take this bracket off? Looks like I kind of do. So let me try that. I want to keep these. Let me put these little screws in a baggie that I then mark. And actually, even better, I'll put them in the same baggie as this dial pointer here, and then it'll all be pretty obvious what this stuff is for. Okay, let me go ahead and mark this lamp here. I'm going to label this one dial bracket. Okay, so that way I can find it later. So this is the bracket right here. Okay, and this mounts onto it. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, so now I'm going to take this off so I'm not standing the radio up on it. Pretty simple. Everything's pretty simple on this guy so far. Really well put together little radio. Normally I put the screw back in the hole. That's exactly what I'll do this time. There's no reason not to. That way I don't lose pieces. I'll tell you what, guys, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take these tubes off now, and I'm going to clean them up and label them, and it's really boring to watch, so I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera. You'll see when I come back, you'll see this radio sands its tubes. All right. All right. As I pull these tubes out, I thought I might as well just hit the chassis with some thinner and see if that cleans it up well enough, and it looks like it is. It looks like at some point this thing had a transformer that bit the dust, because there's all this wax or tar or whatever on here that it seems to emanate from the transformer. So that's the way it happens. And these screws here, the way this is mounted with these washers off center like that, it doesn't look like that's original. I mean, it's adequate, it's working, but it doesn't look original. All right, here we have the output tube, the 6L6. I love these output tubes. 6L6 is one of the nicest output tubes there are. Looks like this happened a long time ago, and when they changed the transformer, they didn't bother to clean it up because it's all pretty dried out and hard. I've got the window open. Always, 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 if you're using something flammable, ventilate. And not just for the flammability side, but also for your lungs. All right. It's not good for brain cells to be breathing too many of these fumes. Now, people have always given me a hard time saying, you're always using lacquer thinner. Aren't you worried about breathing those fumes? Well, I'm not stupid, man. I make sure that I don't have to breathe the fumes. I only do it if it's well ventilated. What I smell right now is a hint of the lacquer thinner and mostly the beautiful wet outside because it rained a little while ago. So that's what I'm smelling, man. I don't know what you're smelling. All right, I just wiped off my numbers here, of course. I had to yell at Fred because he was digging through a box of radio parts and there were some fragile parts in there. I couldn't let him do that. So he went off kind of pissed off at me now. He's not coming around to talk to me for a while. It's sort of a punishment. Cats will do that. You hurt their feelings, they'll punish you. It's all right. What he's not aware of is that give me a little peace and quiet for a while. All right. All right, 6AU6, yes sir. You guys see where I put my pen? Here it is. Yeah, the weather has been just amazing these last couple of weeks here in Salt Lake City. It's we've had some rain. We had one day where we had a little bit of snow so far, and that was gone by the early part of the afternoon. And today it was in the 60s. Thanksgiving Day, it was about as cold as it's been the last couple of weeks, and it was in the 50s. You can't get cocky about it, because as soon as you do, that's when it'll turn, and it will stay turned. I never bought into this whole, I like the four seasons things that Northerners like to say. I'm a Northerner, too. I mean, I grew up in Chicago area. That's worse weather than Salt Lake, that's for sure. But I never bought into that whole notion that, oh, I like the four seasons. No, I don't like the four seasons. I like summer. Winter is something I have to get through to get to the next summer. Four seasons. What's to like? Yeah, fall may be pretty, so okay, great. I could forego fall to have 70-degree weather all year long. That's why wifey tells me if I ever go to California, I'm doomed because I'll want to stay there. But it's so crowded, I don't think I could handle the crowds. My goofy neighbor has a dog that never, ever stops barking. You know, if I was doing that to my neighbors, I would feel guilty. But nothing seems to bother these guys. Their dog barks endlessly, man. Endlessly. It's like they don't notice. It's like the parent in Walmart who has a bratty kid, and they don't notice that their kid is bratty. They're so used to it. If there's anything to like about winter, it's that the windows are closed most of the time, so I don't have to listen to that stupid mutt over there barking constantly. This is why I like cats, guys. Cats don't annoy the neighbors. Unless they're getting out and they're chasing after birds, and that's only mildly annoying. That's not annoying like a dog that never stops barking so you can't open your windows and enjoy the quiet night air. And the city has rules against it, but they never enforce them. You can call them and they tell you, well, you need to keep a log, for the next, 18 months of every time that dog barks. And then you give us a log, and then we'll send them a letter. And then you keep another log, and if they don't respond to the letter, you send that log to us, and we'll send them a second letter. And it goes on and on like this for like a year before anything's actually done. I remember growing up in Illinois, if you had a barking dog, all you needed was one neighbor to call and complain, and they were over there, man. And if the dog was barking when they were there, then you got a ticket. That was that simple, man. But they're afraid now to do anything. They're afraid they might hurt some feelings or something. Everybody's all worried about all the itty-bitties of the fragile people in the world. When I was growing up, the fragile people had to man up. But now we all have to look after the fragile people. I'm not talking about innocents I'm not talking about people with problems where they can't man up. I'm talking about people that choose not to. I'll probably edit this rant out because I'm sure I'll offend somebody. All right, so I got this thing clean on top. That's a pretty good deal. I got these things. They're going to be dangling around getting on my nerves. So what I'm going to have to do is tape them all together and out of the way. So where do I want to do that? I think I'll tape them down here. I'll take these knobs off. These are pretty knobs. Take a look at that. That's a real pretty knob. See the nice marbling on that knob? That's beautiful, man. Anyway, I want to keep these knobs nice. I wouldn't be able to mold or print ones like this, so these have to be kept very nice. You put them in their own baggie. And just before I put the radio back together, I'll soak them and clean them, or maybe before then. Okay. Now, are these sturdy enough to be set on? I think they are. I don't worry about these too much as long as they're sturdy and tight. If they're not, well then of course you have to be careful with them, but I think they're okay on this one. But this radio has some weight to it. That transformer's not light. I think it's set up. Now I'm going to stop for the night because it's time to get my shower and get ready to go to work tomorrow. But just, you've seen under this in the intro video, really this is a nice chassis, unlike the last couple I've worked on, in that it's fairly open. Some watch outs for me are this transformer coil set right here. It's actually a little loose feeling. I'm going to stay away from that. I'm glad this wall is there and make it less likely I bump it. I'm going to have to do these electrolytic caps. I like how they're mounted separately, but I still have a can to worry about. So it looks like there are two, because it's grounded through the can, and then this here goes off to the ground. So yeah, there are two caps on this. Okay, not terrible. I'll probably pluck this can out of there, and I'll mount a terminal strip right there, and I'll hook them up there. So that's the easy way to go. I think the rest is going to be straightforward, so we'll just dive into it. All right, I'm going to shut it down for the night, guys. Take a look at a sneak preview while I close out this one. It's been a little longer than I usually like to go, and so I apologize for that. And I really apologize for the grumpy rant. I'll go get some Diet Coke now, and that'll settle things down. Even though it's time to get ready for bed, a little Diet Coke won't kill me. And I promise next time I'll be in a better, more jovial mood. Really, I wouldn't lie to you this time. So from your western outpost in Salt Lake City, this is Michael, and that's all for now.